Great Gatsby is typically described as the great American novel. It takes place during the Jazz Age or the Roaring Twenties. Wealth and beauty were constantly being chased after, and elaborate parties filled with booze and fancy dresses were abundant. In this setting, all you really need to know is the East Egg and the West Egg. The West Egg is where the newly rich live and is somewhat looked down upon by the East Egg, which is basically just like the West Egg, but for even richer people. The East Egg is really just more old and classy money. The Great Gatsby consists of a few major characters who you'll probably dislike in the beginning and probably even more so by the time the book ends. First, we've got Nick Carraway, who's the narrator of the story. He grew up in the Midwest and accumulated a lot of money through his ancestry. He lives in the West Egg but goes to the East Egg to visit his cousin Daisy. Daisy Buchanan is the blonde-haired ideal woman of the 1920s. You've probably heard her name before come from a girl in a flapper dress who really just wanted an excuse to wear a flapper dress. The problem with Daisy is she's a little vapid and annoying. However, she comes across as not so much so when she says she hopes her daughter will be a beautiful little fool, because that's the best thing a girl in this world can be. This reveals she knows how disillusioned she is, but feels it's for the best. Next, we have Tom Buchanan, Daisy's husband. You know that popular guy from high school who was on the football team and sort of a jerk to everyone? Well, that's Tom Buchanan, but all grown up. Nick delivers one of the most eloquent burns in great American literature when he describes Tom as one of those men who achieve such an acute, limited excellence at 21 that everything afterwards savors of anticlimax. Then we have Myrtle Wilson, who's more of a minor character, but she's Tom Buchanan's mistress who he's had an affair with for a while now. He also domestically abuses her throughout the entire story, just in case you didn't hate Tom enough already. Jordan Baker shouldn't even really be listed under here, but she hangs out with the Buchanans sometimes. She's some big tennis player, and Nick dates her for a little while, but that's really just background stuff. Finally, we have Jay Gatsby, the Great Gatsby himself. He's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, filthy rich man living over in the West Egg. Imagine the biggest house you've ever seen in your life, then multiply it times 10. That's Gatsby's house. Nick describes Gatsby as someone who can get along with just about anyone, which more or less may be influenced by Gatsby's overuse of the phrase, old sport. Later in the story, it'll be revealed that Gatsby is really just a boy who grew up somewhat poor in Louisville, Kentucky, and his questionable gain of wealth is through a lot of bootlegging and not-so-genuine means. Okay, so the premise of the story is really that Gatsby and Daisy had a bit of a fling 5 years ago, and he's been trying to win her back ever since. So naturally, he moved across the bay from her, her husband, and her child, and stares at the green light that moves back and forth on her dock nightly, which is more or less the 1920s version of Facebook stalking, but taken to a whole new level. Gatsby is constantly throwing these amazing parties, hoping he'll gain Daisy's attention and she'll show up to one. He's often referred to as a magician regarding his parties. One interesting aspect of himself and these parties is that he never really drinks at them or even participates in them. Finally, his parties become worth something when Nick convinces the Buchanans to go to the parties and Gatsby and Daisy are finally reunited. Eventually, through Nick's encouragement, Daisy and Gatsby begin an affair, while Tom and Myrtle continue their affair. Eventually, Tom discovers what Daisy's doing and confronts Gatsby about it at a hotel in New York, after they've both driven there in each other's cars, which is a long and confusing story, but important to the plot and what happens next. Gatsby tells Tom that Daisy doesn't love him, and Tom basically just goes on to reveal how Gatsby is a bootlegger. All the while, Daisy refuses to say that she loves Gatsby, and Tom says that she never will love Gatsby because he doesn't have real money. That, he leaves Daisy and Gatsby at the hotel and drives home. Then, the climax of the story comes when Daisy drives Gatsby's car home with Gatsby riding shotgun. As she's driving, she sees Myrtle in the street and hits her, killing Myrtle immediately. Gatsby says he's going to take the fall for her, but it turns out Myrtle's husband saw the car that hit her and knew it was Gatsby's. This leads to him going to Gatsby's house and shooting Gatsby while he's swimming in his pool, and then killing himself. Mainly, this book comes across as glorifying first world problems, but all in all, while this book is meant to display the overarching themes of going after the American dream and the benefits of it, it truly shows the negative aspects that come out of living this dream and how no one is truly ever happy with their life. The green light represents Gatsby's hopes and dreams, and he's forever reaching out towards it in the darkness. Another important symbol is the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eichelberg, which stared on him and everyone else, acting as the judgmental eyes of God all throughout the story. The biggest emphasis on the story, however, is its emphasis on a nostalgia for the past and forever trying to recreate it. But we, the audience, and Gatsby himself, find out that we can't. The book ends more or less stating this with Nick saying, "So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past."